Hi, I'm Wild Bill. It's the 12th of March, 2022. And outside I can hear the pitter patter of little snow shovels. A week ago we were wearing shirt sleeves. That's the nice thing about Pittsburgh weather. If you don't like it, wait a couple minutes. I want to talk today about my individual existence as an artist. That's something that I'm an expert with. Um, the other things I talk about, those are the products of my thoughts, my reading, my experiences, all integrating into an opinion. And as we all know, opinions are like farts. Everybody stink except mine. I don't follow the course of the generic path of art and artistry in my generation or yours. I can't. I don't have the ability to say, I'm going to draw more like this artist. I'm going to write music more like this artist. I'm going to write poetry more like this artist. I want to sound like the next Kanye. I want to be the next Elvis Presley. I want to I want to subsume my individual identity into the attempt to rationalize it as somebody else's identity, which is my ideal, for whatever reason. That stuff is alien to me. I'm Wild Bill. I really literally am a different kind of person. I think different than other people do. Sometimes my thoughts are clear and lucid. Other times they're murky and turbid. However, my artwork is generally of a fairly high quality. If you're looking for polish, I may not be your man, but polish is not art. Polish is technique after art. My best existence is one in which I have very little input from the main cultural trends, artistically speaking, because I don't want to write a song that sounds like Britney Spears' newest song. I don't want to write a song that sounds like Madonna's newest song. I don't want to write a song that sounds like Henry Mancini's newest song or Herbie Hancock's newest song. I don't want to sound like Grand Funk. I don't want to sound like Pink Floyd. I don't want to sound like Aretha Franklin. That girl is one hell of a piano player, in case you didn't know that. Wow, better than me. So remember that when you're hearing her sing and thinking like, yeah, she's a singer singing somebody else's song. No, she's a singer who can sit down at the piano and perform that song while singing like the top singer of her age. Imagine that. Yeah, there's a beautiful video, or maybe recording. I seem to remember a video of her sitting at a piano, and she has people around her like a crowd, not like a big restaurant crowd or something, but like people crowd around like a choir crowd, like a evangelist church. And she's talking to them, and they're talking back to her like she's a preacher, and she's warming herself up to play the whole time, and then plays a gospel version of Bridge Over Troubled Water, and you wonder why you never thought of that. It's not my version of Bridge Over Troubled Water. I really like Paul's. The pianist that does that created that part for Bridge Over Troubled Water, he's a guy that works within a style, that works within the guidelines of his culture, and he did it so well that what he did was genius. So it can be done. It just isn't easy. And I'm not a person who can do that. I can't say, I'm going to lay down Bridge Over Troubled Water, and you're going to walk away saying, Paul who? I don't even want to be like that. I want to get up from the piano and walk away, and people say like, dang, wow, Bill. You know? I want to get up off the piano and walk away, and people say like, that's that song I was telling you about. Or, geez, that guy can hold his own. Right? Or like somebody, I'd love to drop a name, I won't, but a person whose artistic ability is very dear to me. once remarked in my hearing, I don't think he could tell I was listening because I was playing, but he says, "Yeah, Billy's like in the old days. He could hold a room." I'm like, I, well, and there were times that I could do that when I was young, when everybody liked the music I was playing, and you know, and the whole room would like do a little bit of this before they go back to whatever they were doing. That was nice. But my real contribution to art is not going to come from my ability to play like Elton John or like the Eagles or like uh, Britney Spears, as I said, or Lady Gaga, who's quite the entertainer, by the way. My contribution to art comes from my uniquity, my individuality, the ways in which I am not like any other artist. I am not like Eric Borden. I am not like John Paul Jones. I'm not like Mike Nesmith. I'm not like uh, Frank Zappa. Not like any of these people. I am my own guy. And so, this is where I can feel I have a positive effect. No one writes songs like me. But people struggle to write songs like Led Zeppelin. They struggle to write songs like Aretha Franklin's songs. They struggle to write songs like Britney Spears' songs, who doesn't write her own songs. That's a thing that I have about people. If you're a copy artist, that's cool. There's nothing wrong with being a copy artist and admiring the people you admire and loving the people you love. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of why artists get supported, because people enjoy their work and are willing to pay for it. That is a kind of very remunerative art. But I don't feel better about myself as an artist when I play someone else's song. Though lately I heard in my head all these years been hearing "You Are So Beautiful to Me," and then suddenly I sat down the piano a couple nights ago, turned it way down, went like this, and realized I could play the song. And it's not easy. It was co-written by Billy Preston, who is a very, very talented pianist and keyboard artist. Wow. And I didn't realize how good the song was until I finally just suddenly click, 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 click like a Rubik's Cube. All the pieces fell into place and I recognized what he was doing. I couldn't realize what he was doing with the rhythm. And so the way he came into the song and the way he would turn it around again, come back to the tag, was beyond me. And then a couple nights ago, click, 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 click. Oh my gosh, I got it from what I was doing. Walked over here, turned the piano very low. And I could play that song. How amazing. But that doesn't define me as an artist. So I almost walked myself in a circle there. What pleases me most is what defines me as an artist. And that is what I do that isn't like Billy Preston. What I do that isn't like Art Tatum. What I do that isn't like Elton John. What I do that isn't like Aretha Franklin. Hell of a piano player, Aretha. I'm never going to sing like Louis Armstrong, who's one of the finest male singers I've ever heard. You'd think like him? Go listen again. And I'll never sing like Ella Fitzgerald, who's probably the finest professional singer I ever heard. And I worked with Marty Gonzalez for years. He had a beautiful, cultured voice. I'll never sing like him. But where my strength in art lies is in where I sing like me. That rough, grufty old voice that usually hits its notes. That's me. The weird poetry and syncopation that somehow makes sense when it's Bill doing it. That's me. If I could be soothed by accomplishment, that should soothe me. Because to be as unique an artist as I am is a high honor in the world. Because so many of us are struggling just to be like those people we like the most. And I don't have that. I like those people, but I don't see them as achievable goals. I don't see me writing like Paul Simon. I don't see me singing like Aretha Franklin. No way. But I don't think that either Paul or Aretha would listen to a Wild Bill song, had it ever happened, and said he's untalented. They would have said like, "Oh, that's wow, that guy's got something." It's not my thing, but that's okay, because their thing isn't my thing either. Understand, how famous a person is has nothing to do with how talented they are and where they would stand in a room full of art people. You could say like, "Oh no, Elton John would stand on top because he's worth more money," but call Michael Jackson back from the grave and Elton will have to sit down. But Michael isn't nearly the piano player that Elton is. Not nearly the dancer that Lady Gaga is. Not nearly the singer that Louis Armstrong was. So the amount of money you make is not as much directly correlated with your level of talent as you may have thought, because it's not. To know secrets about art helps enlighten you as to other aspects of art. Here's one. Artists have senses of humor, or else they're very painful people and they're desperately seeking humor, and so their humor always comes off half-cocked or awkward, and they're still struggling to do it because they understand that that's a good thing, they just can't access it. So the happier artists, or the ones who are able to express themselves better, are the ones with a sense of humor. And let me give you an idea of what an ultimate sense of humor can do for you. Duchamp did a classic, the archetypal cubist style piece called Nude Descending a Staircase. And in it, you see kind of a greenish bluish background in squares that kind of try to establish space. There's things, there's chandelier, there's a window back there, but it's really all done in rectangles. And that's why they call it cubism. It's silly. And in it, there is a flesh-colored blur that has different angles painted on it. Angles, angles, angles. And it's doing this around the staircase, which is a tube or a cylinder. So, and it shows every image as if you're showing stop-motion photography before there was stop-motion photography. So you're getting frame, 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 all the way down that staircase. And each aspect of that frame is taken from a different perspective. So he wasn't looking at, here's the model. So her breasts are aligned like that, her shoulders are like this, her hips are like that, and I can draw according to those balances. The knees are here, the elbows are like that. This is all a series of tangential lines. And the body and its motion can be defined by them. If you don't know what I'm talking about, or if you think I'm wrong, that's okay. Look into it. You'll be enlightened. It won't be my fault. It'll be your fault, and I'll applaud you. So, and he does that in every state. And in each case, he's looking at her left side of her face from here, and the right side of her face from there, and so the two sides of her face are different. And her left aspect is different from her right aspect because he's moving. He's freezing her on the staircase, and he's walking around going, that's where that line goes. And then he walks over here and says, oh, but this line does that. And that's what Nude Descending a Staircase is to the technical artist. And I'm not even done with how wonderful a piece it is because it's a pun. It's a visual pun on a classical painting of a nude descending a staircase that's done in the classical style, almost Rubenesque. It's just beautiful, beautiful painting of a woman descending a staircase. Instead, Duchamp took the whole motion of a girl descending a staircase, as if he was on acid, and he was getting trails of her as she walked down the staircase, and saw the whole thing as one long item, one long motion. Futurism, which was the art of motion, which had been just not long before, Dada, and Dada, which meant that everything is nothing and nothing is everything, had gone to Futurism, which is everything is motion. And then from that, you derive a style like Duchamp, who understood all those things and says, like, no, it's like this. And I'm going to jag that guy, whoever the French 1880 painter was that did the Nude Descending a Staircase. I'm going to jag him all the way down. And everybody's going to laugh and think I'm the greatest artist ever, and nobody got his joke except me. At least not that I've read. None of the critics got the joke. Well, It was the first thing I saw because I'd seen that painting of Nude Descending Staircase. And then I saw his, and I went like, oh, it's like a slinky. That's the first thing I thought. It's a slinky going around the staircase. And it's got a girl painted on it. Yeah, so you're not quite seeing the whole girl in any image. You're seeing part of her left, part of her right, part of her this, part of her that. Like a slinky. So that's what originality in art can do for you. And Duchamp was a member of his community, his artist community. He was very strongly immersed in it. So what he did was very much in the line and in the historical prerogative of his generation's travel through the artistic world. It's stepping a few more steps up the mountain of understanding from where the classical had been. Or maybe up the mountain of progress, and progress isn't always leading to understanding. Sometimes progress is negative. Evolution is not an upward process. It's just a process. We ascribe importance and upward motion to it because we originally used it as a method to prove that man was the most wonderful of God's creations. I'm not kidding. This is really what evolution was all about. Old Scotsman knew what he was talking about. Charlie Darwin was trying to do the same thing. And in that case, it fails as a doctrine. Today's view of evolution is very different than Charlie Darwin's. We're like, oh no, science is seamless and everybody believes the same thing. No, it's not like that. And Charlie Darwin's ideas have mostly been debunked. But the concept of evolution has evolved, you see, in human artifice. So, if you do derivatory art, there are two kinds of genius. Let me take it from that, I'm sorry. There are two kinds of genius, right? There is the inductive genius, and then there is the interpolative genius. Those are the two types of genius. One has ideas. The other turns ideas into flesh, right? I have this great idea. If you use the ability of electrons to repel one another and their affinity for copper wires in electrogalvanism, can't you do? Yeah, you can. You can generate power over long periods of time. Over long periods of space, you can keep it going. You can. This genius had an idea. This genius says, look, I can make that into hardware. Right? I'm a Newton. I'm a Tesla. So, I'm neither of those men. But my genius, if I have it, and I can use it in the raw form, genius meaning aptitude for, like a muse. But if I possess it, it lies in the uniquity of my artistic offerings, not in my ability to codify myself according to someone else's standard. I can't. I don't. And I'm sort of glad. My compensation for that is I find great pleasure in being able to do something that I haven't seen before, or to attack a subject as it has not yet been attacked. I have often defined my graphic art as art of the absurd versus the natural. And what I'll do is I'll have either very ordinary looking creatures going through very unusual circumstances, or have very unusual creatures going through very ordinary circumstances. I did a very complex, beautiful poster one time of an alien spacecraft and a prisoner held in like a giant frame because he's hugely powerful, and bolts of energy pouring through to keep him in what's called sechna, stasis, enforced stasis, so he couldn't move, and he couldn't tear himself free. And in all this alien architecture and concept, and you have to, like, the eye has to look at it and go like, okay, it's this in that, and there's these spaces, you know. But in all of that, there's a kid's roller skate, the kind you use a key with. Kid's roller skate sitting on the floor. Art of the absurd inside of the ordinary, or the ordinary inside of the absurd or the fantastic. That's what my art is. And even when I write poetry, that's what I do. And even when I write songs, that's what I do. Because I am trying as hard as possible to embrace my uniquity, rather than ascribe to someone else's code of their strictures. for the creation of original art. If I win, the only thing I can win at, because there's not much for me here, I'm an old man, what am I going to win? Not much, right? Better level of doctors that tell me I need more money? What else is there? Better drugs? I don't need better drugs. Caffeine wires me out already. Sugar's bad for me. So I know those things. And I know that any other drug you pick up is worse for you than the ones you've been doing. That's just how that goes. If it's interesting to you, that means it's a step up in terms of how high you get from it. And that usually leads to bad problems with your liver or your digestion or your central nervous system. And you don't want any of that if you're an artist. What you want as an artist is you want that freedom to be able to express yourself as an artist on the spot, right? Because many of us just have to go home and take time and we lay stuff out and we make sure we get it right. And then others of us can just walk into a place and take over. It is the bane of the existence of every comedian that they can't do that. They know that. That's their ideal. I can just walk into a place and take over. But none of them can do it because none of them's that funny. Because they're all dependent on the culture and doing topical humor that doesn't really relate to a wider audience. And you need to have your view set on the whole of the human experience and not just this narrow red. I saw a movie last week. I read a book today, all from today, last week, today, modern culture. That's only to be funny to other people that are like racing along with you, trying to get to the end of their life as quick as possible. I'm like in the other spot. I want to sit alone for hours and days and months, even feeling lonely, because that makes the hours and days and months stretch into months and years and centuries, decades. So that I feel as though I have lived here for 1,000 years, and I can feel the moments. And they're beautiful. I did this art. I did that art. I did this art. I listened to other people talk about their stuff and I argued with them. Or I agreed with them. Or I pontificated because they got a doctorate and I don't. I must know what I'm talking about better, right? Well, Bill, I obviously think I know everything. I don't. I embraced my uniquity. Part of my uniquity is my belief that I should be able to express myself freely, not just in the narrow realm of the arts that I pursue, but also in the wider world. Here's my artist's view on society. Here's my artist's view on the advance of military technology. Here's my artist's view on whether there can be aliens and they're visiting us or not. Here's my artist's view on, did Jesus float across the water? Did he walk on the water? Was there a sudden freeze and he walked across the ice? What are they telling me in that story? Was it a Hellenistic indoctrinated fanboy promoting his own narrative, as people often do in their biographies? No, it can't be, Bill, because we all pray that we get the right of it. Yes, and the people that are wrong are also praying to get the right of it. So how do you explain that? Well, we're just better than they are. Now you go right back to what's wrong with society. Elitism. You don't know that. You're just assuming that. There is no conviction other than your internal conviction, and that isn't good enough to prove you right. And it's not good enough to affect the lives of others if you can't prove you're right. So, open up your hearts. Let the sun shine in. Realize that your spin on something, the spin of the people that taught you something, may not have been right down the middle. It may have been highly skewed as a narrative. You know, son, you look really good in those green shorts and that military belt and that military-looking shirt with all the honors on the one shoulder and your years of service on the other shoulder and that military-looking hat and your ability to go camp out with the boys. That's a narrative. It's a paramilitary group. It always was. And so were all the other groups like that in several other countries. They all have one. They have the mountain youth. They have the youth in step with the government. And of course, that's important stuff. It is a means of inculcating a desire in a society for service. It's a good idea, really, because the society needs people who are willing to serve it selflessly. But it also needs a lot of consumers, or else who are you going to serve selflessly? If everybody's independent, they're not. Okay, they're all dependent. They're inter and codependent. So, however, I was a Boy Scout. I was a Cub Scout. I was a Boy Scout. I was an explorer. And joining the military was very natural for me. Consider that. My father was a war veteran. His father was not. So my father began that tradition. Decorated war veteran. Went in a sergeant and came out a captain. All because of a war and his ability to attend to detail. He was a wonderful guy for that. I can see him in his chosen field or in his assigned field doing well. And he's also a good man among men. So he had a lot of those advantages that he earned. I'm not saying he got them for free. He lived through the Depression. It traumatized everybody that lived through it. It traumatized everyone who lived through it. If your neighborhood was a Depression neighborhood and you couldn't afford to buy stuff and the prices were going up and all the businesses were closing because they couldn't afford to charge high enough rates and people couldn't afford to buy them, you know, like a story about one meatball. It's a good story. But it goes back to when it was one fishball. It was the fishball blues, I think. And it was back in England in the 1840s that there was another famine. See that? Yeah. So anyway, my father's generation went through hell. And most of the people in that generation all around the world went through hell. It's the nature of the history of the times. I'm not going to go into the causes of it here, but wide, inappropriate speculation in financial markets absolutely caused the whole problem. So it wasn't the poor. It was the people at the very top of society that created an artificial economy that crashed and destroyed the whole world. And most of it was based on trying to continue to profiteer off of World War I contracts. So anyway, and to scrabble to find new ways to exist when the World War I contracts dried up. And so people began to do financial speculation rather than honest investment in their product and their workforce and their retooling. They start spending that money speculating on other people's businesses. And that is gambling. And gambling is wrong. Ask anybody. Gambling's wrong. Even though the states condone it now because they need the revenue, certainly gambling is wrong for the people whose lives it destroys. And there are quite a few of them. Go out to Las Vegas. Go to Atlantic City. And there's so many gamblers, and they can't afford to go to Atlantic City because once they get there, they won't have any money to gamble. So now we have gambling here. So all that profiteering kind of like destroyed the whole industry. And then created a new one inside. And it was a natural drain for corruption. You don't think that Las Vegas is run by the mafia because it's not profitable that people gamble, do you? Because if you do, you're probably not even as close to reality as I am. You got some work to do, bud. But getting back to that, this is all derivative and cultural. That's why I'm going on about it. This is all part of your culture. And if your artists are inside that culture, then everybody's going to write a song like what is his name, Howley or whoever it was, who wrote 10,000 Fireflies. Everybody's going to write a song like, Kanye. Everybody's going to write a song like, I hope everybody notices my song. It's almost as good as Britney. That is nails pinning me to the board of someone else's expectations, and that person isn't even educated well enough to have positive reinforcing expectations. They're just, cultural fanboys. So instead, I isolate myself. I don't listen to the radio. I don't watch popular videos. I don't listen to the endless train of talk shows telling you what you're supposed to like, imprinting you with the pop culture, which is mindless and pointless. Even if you're young, it's mindless and pointless. What's it going to do? Once you get a boy or a girl, you don't need that anymore, do you? No. You smelled right, you looked right, you got hitched, you got whatever you got, right? You're a single parent now, struggling with your kid. Whatever. And all that is part of the world and part of our desire to profit off of everything we understand about the world. And I'm the opposite of that. I don't profit off of anything. I don't make a living off of anything I do. I couldn't. I would have to stop being a wildly creative artist and become a hard-working marketer. Ask your friends who are working steady in music, how much of your musical effort do you have to spend in marketing yourself, being creative and a positive marketer? And every bit of energy you spend doing that is energy you don't spend on your art. So the better you get at marketing, the less good you're going to get at art, because you spent those resources doing this instead. Just like at college. It's no different, except you're older now, and it's harder to do. So, instead of being a marketer, because I can't, I don't have my dad's ability to market. He was, in some ways, a very highly proficient and talented marketer. I am not that at all. I'm a creative person. If he was my sponsor, he would market my art maybe, and that would be worthwhile to both of us because he would profit and I would profit. But then eventually it would come to, Bill, we need more pieces. Bill, we need more pieces. Just throw anything down. Just anything. I don't care. Just I need 50 pieces a week. I need 50 pieces a week. And then pretty soon I'm never doing art again because I'm just copy, 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 copy. And you can do that with a machine. Now you know why I'm different than who everybody else is. Because that's not for me. I see that coming. I've been in that and it happened to me, not with my dad, but with other people. What was honored in me wasn't a bit of what I was doing that was original and unique. What was honored is my ability to act like a printing machine. No way. That cheapens the art. That's what cheapens art. The fact that I don't charge for my art, but I give it as gifts to people I love, doesn't cheapen my art, you capitalists. What cheapens the art is mass production of copying and teaching a culture of copying so that nobody needs to do anything original because they can just copy somebody. And that ruins art. That ruins a whole generation's ability to express itself artistically, socially, ethnically, and ethically. Sorry, those both belong, but in different places. So I recommend, always, you'll hear me say this again and again, that instead of trying to embrace what you do that's like other people, try to embrace what you do that's not like other people. And I don't mean violent behavior, because that's easy. Everybody does that. We're the killing ape. I mean in artistic behavior. You know what? Here's this thing I do that nobody does this like me. I'm going to see if that works. You'll be happier with yourself. I'm a tortured individual. Inside my mind, there are wars raging all the time. However, and I'm lonely all the time, and I don't want company. How about that? How about that for a closed system? But in all this, I am happier because I'm able to create the art that I was meant to create. My songs are powerful. My poetry is powerful. In the old days when I was drawing, my drawings were powerful. If I somehow mature my writing and my books are powerful, then I will be as good an artist as I ever needed to be. If compensation for your anxieties can be the production of high quality art, then I should be soothed by that, because I have and I do. And I will continue to until Mr. Stroke knocks me down, or whatever else happens. I urge you all, embrace what makes you unique. Do not copy what you see of other people, except to learn a little bit of technique that you can then apply to your own original work. Honor the work of others because it's unique and interesting too. But do not set that as your goal or standard. Your goal or standard should be above that. You should be the one creating the art, not just interpreting the art of others. Well, Bill.